Right at this very second, the entire globe is suspended over a geopolitical fault line that could literally fracture at any moment. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're breaking down this incredibly fragile US-Iran ceasefire. And, well, to really understand it, let's start with the chilling reality of just how close we came to the absolute brink.
Just listen to these words. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Those were the exact words issued by President Donald Trump on April 7, 2026. I really want you to feel the suspense and the sheer gravity of that statement. We were standing on the literal precipice of total destruction. That intense, high-stakes environment, that's exactly where our story today begins. We're currently paused on a knife's edge, and understanding the mechanics of this pause is absolutely crucial for every single one of us.
Section 1. The 11th hour pause and how we got here.
Okay, let's put on our international relations hats and dive into this. Tracing the trajectory of this conflict reveals some highly calculated diplomatic maneuvering. So hostilities officially kicked off on February 28th. Fast forward to the morning of April 7th, threats to destroy national infrastructure are escalating and talks have seemingly completely stalled. But then, at the absolute 11th hour, a 2-week ceasefire was proposed, pulling us back from full-scale war. Now let's jump to April 21st. From a geopolitical strategy standpoint, this extension granted by President Trump is critical. It was actually orchestrated at the specific request of Pakistan, who stepped in as a vital strategic intermediary. Why? Basically, to give Iranian leaders the necessary time to consolidate a unified proposal. We're essentially watching a massive pause button being held down while back-channel negotiators scramble to find a permanent solution.
Section 2. The toll of conflict. Looking at the human cost.
That number is 13. Since this war began just a few weeks ago on February 28th, 13 American personnel have tragically lost their lives, according to the Defense Manpower Data Center. You know, in the midst of analyzing treaties, extensions, and all this high-level geopolitical strategy, it is so vital to pause and remember the ultimate price being paid on the ground.
And immediately alongside that, we have this staggering figure, over 400. That's the number of American personnel who have been wounded in this remarkably short window of time. When you strip away all the political noise, the press conferences, the diplomatic posturing, these numbers represent the severe, irreversible human stakes of this conflict. It is exactly why the international community is so incredibly desperate to see this temporary ceasefire actually translate into a lasting peace.
Section 3. Choking the global economy. Let's talk about the naval blockade. Now, what's really interesting here is that while the guns might be quiet on land, an intense economic war is actively raging at sea. The Strait of Hormuz, which, if you didn't know, is this absolutely critical international trade artery connecting the Middle East to global markets, has been effectively closed since the start of hostilities nearly 2 months ago. Restoring commercial traffic through this specific bottleneck is an urgent top priority. I mean, when this strait closes, the entire global market feels the shockwaves almost instantly. And this brings us to a really fascinating paradox in the current conflict. We're looking at two simultaneous contrasting realities. On land and in the air, we have a military ceasefire, right? A pause in direct kinetic strikes. But out at sea, there is an active, aggressive naval blockade. The US military is heavily focused on imposing this blockade to restrict shipping. It's a highly calculated strategy to apply massive economic pressure on Iran. By cutting off maritime access, the U.S. is essentially utilizing an economic chokehold as a primary tool of negotiation, operating entirely separately from that terrestrial ceasefire we just talked about.
Section 4. Impact on civilian wallets and the cost at the pump.
Let's methodically break down this domino effect, because it directly affects us. Domino 1. Commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is severely restricted due to the hostilities and the blockade. Domino 2. Because a massive percentage of the world's oil flows through that exact strait, restricting it causes an immediate, sharp surge in global fuel prices. And domino 3, everyday civilian wallets are being drained globally. This isn't just some theoretical problem for economists sitting in a room somewhere. The shipping restrictions imposed by Iran and the subsequent blockade dynamics translate directly into the surging costs you and I are paying at the gas pump right now.
And this brilliantly illustrates that shift. We are moving rapidly from normal fuel costs to surging, heavily inflated global prices. The longer the Strait of Hormuz remains contested and closed to normal commercial traffic, the higher those costs are going to climb. The pressure isn't just on the negotiators in closed rooms anymore, it's actively suffocating the broader global economy.
Section 5. The ticking diplomatic clock. Time is running out.
Despite the extension, the whole diplomatic machinery is showing signs of serious strain. Highly anticipated talks between U.S. and Iranian delegations that were scheduled in Islamabad abruptly postponed. There is deep uncertainty regarding the broad strokes of any potential deal. As a result, Vice President J.D. Vance and other key U.S. officials didn't even board the plane to Pakistan. They stayed right in Washington. The table was practically set, but the key players are refusing to sit down.
And the rhetoric coming from the other side of the table is incredibly alarming. Iran had yet to even confirm its attendance at those postponed talks. Instead, they issued this direct military threat, warning that they are prepared, quote, to unveil new cards on the battlefield. It's a pretty chilling reminder that while the U.S. is holding off its attacks, awaiting a unified proposal, Iran is actively signaling its readiness to escalate the war in new, unforeseen ways if diplomacy fails.
So the crucial takeaway here is that patience is wearing incredibly thin. President Trump, speaking to CNBC, stated bluntly, "We don't have that much time." He made it super clear that while he's optimistic about potential talks, the U.S. military stands completely ready to resume bombing if no deal is struck with the Iranian government. What makes this so compelling is the sudden shift in tone. Just a day earlier, Trump told Bloomberg News he wouldn't be rushed into a bad deal, claiming we've got all the time in the world. But today, the message is crystal clear. The clock is ticking loudly, and that pause button will not be held down forever.
Which leaves us staring at this ultimate question. Will the ceasefire hold, or is time up? We have a fragile extension requested by a third party, stalled talks in Islamabad, rising global fuel prices squeezing everyday citizens, an active naval blockade, and direct threats of returning to the battlefield. The geopolitical and economic stakes quite literally could not be higher. I hope this explainer has helped you clearly see the intricate gears turning behind today's headlines. Keep a really close eye on the Strait of Hormuz and an even closer eye on Washington and Tehran in the coming days. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this, and I'll see you in the next explainer.